Hi, in this video I'm going to be going through all of the weapons in the current VR Weapon Interactor asset available on the Unity Asset Store. So we'll go left to right and go through each weapon and how it all works. So we'll start with the simplest weapon. This is just a basic weapon. I've used the M9 model, but it has no moving parts and no magazine. The magazine is integrated, internal, and is also set to be infinite. I've added a little laser pointer here just to make it a little bit easier to aim. And I've got a little bit of a slower moving projectile here with a little red trace on it just so you can see it working. This is pretty much the simplest kind of weapon you can have. It has infinite ammo, you can just shoot it endlessly and it's nice and simple. Okay, now moving on to the M9 pistol. So this one's a little bit more complicated. It starts off with the scene empty and with no bullet in it. So when it's got no bullet in it, you can move the slide around freely like you might be able to on a real magazine. And when you actually want to put some bullets in it, you can use a magazine. It's got a little slide in and out. It's quite flexible in that it joins to it, so you can hit against it like this and it doesn't go in. But if you move it here, it nice and fixes it for you. And it's quite easy, you just throw it in. Generally speaking, it's, even if you're holding it at a weird angle, you can still get it in really easily. It's nice and straightforward. But even when the magazine's in, it still doesn't fire because you haven't pulled the slide back to load the magazine. When you've pulled it back, you can actually see that the bullet is in the loaded position. Now it's ready to fire. So you can pull the slide back when it's got bullets in it to eject new rounds. And if you fire all of the bullets in the gun, you see also it's using a physical bullet with a white trace on it. When you fired all of the bullets, the slide locks back. And when it's locked back, you can grab onto it, but you can't move it all the way back because the magazine is still in and it's empty. When you remove the magazine, you can then move the slide freely again, as you might expect. Now, these little bullets on the ground here, you can see that it doesn't have any bullet here, but these do. So the top bullet is actually set to be visible. So when I grab this bullet, I can just move it here and load it in. And then from then on, I can just load them in. And all of the rest of the bullets are set to be invisible, but you can, if you want to, if all of them are visible, you can just toggle each bullet visibility and then set its position on the magazine. But for this one, it's just the top bullet, just so you can see that there is actually a bullet in. You can also actually move the magazine over the bullet itself and grab a bullet that way. Once you've loaded up, you can pull back, load up, and you're ready to fire again. So another method of getting bullets into the gun is to use maybe a tray. So you can set any bullet you want to be on this tray, and you can either pick up the tray and with your other hand take out the bullets and place them where you want to. So for instance, if I wanted to load them into this gun, I could place my magazine down here, take these bullets and just start loading them in manually until it's full. But alternatively, if we empty this magazine here, we can actually use the scoop method, in which we move this towards it and we can very quickly fill up the whole magazine and be ready to fire a lot faster using a tray. Okay, next gun is the revolver. So for this one, it works how you'd expect a revolver to work. It has this revolving thing. You can, with your other hand, click on it to make it toggle out, but you can also use the thumbstick to do it just with a little instruction. In this case, it's set to thumbstick up. So I just push on the thumbstick up, and it toggles between expended and unexpended. It's already ready to fire right from the beginning because it's got all the bullets in. So I can fire this away. I've coloured the spent bullets black just so you can see that they've been spent. And if you hold the gun back, you can see that they fall out, and after a second or two, literally just 1 second in this case, they disappear. Now for loading new bullets in, you can use one of these, just a little loader, so they're packed with bullets, and you just push that on here, and they all load in really quickly. You can also see if I only shoot a few of them, that the actual thing does spin around, and obviously they're slightly overlapping in this case, but that's just because of the size of the bullets and this little model that I made. And even when the partial bullet's done, you can still eject them all, and everything still gets ejected because there's nothing to hold them in. But you can manually load the bullets in as well by just grabbing them and putting them over the thing and then closing it, and you're able to fire them no problem. You also notice that this is actually using raycasts instead of physical bullets. So where this gun uses physical bullets, so you can see the actual bullet moving, and if the time was made really slow, then you'd be able to see it traveling all the way. These bullets do not work like that. They actually work on a raycast, so you can see that they actually immediately get to their target with no time delay because they're using a raycast. Okay, next gun is the AK, or just a rifle. Any kind of rifle really works a similar way. So you see that this rifle, unlike the M9, is actually ready to fire right away. You can just pick it up and shoot it. It already has its magazine in with its bullets, and you can see that it's already got one loaded. But even if I were to unload it and take it out, so now it's empty, all I actually have to do is put the magazine in, and it immediately loads the bullet ready to fire, right from the beginning. So you see it here. If I put the thing in, it immediately loads the first bullet and is ready to fire right away. And this gun's also using the raycasting. Now the other thing about this gun is that it has a second held position. So I've also got this magazine that's gold. That means it has infinite ammo. Doesn't have to be gold. I've just made it a different color just so you can see that. There's a second held collider right here. When you hold that, you can reduce the recoil when you're firing it. So that's the recoil with two hands, and with one hand the recoil is quite a lot more. And just like with the other gun, you can manually load bullets, like this one, straight in, and load them in. Next we've got attachments. So for the attachments, we've got 3 to choose from here. The top one's a silencer. Even so, this is just obviously just a cylinder. When you've got it held and you've got the gun held, then you can see a little highlight. Now this highlight will just use the mesh of whatever your attachment is. So if this wasn't a cylinder and it was a bit more complicated than that, the highlight would be the same material, the same model, but with a different shader, this little like transparency shader. And you can customize that how you want it to go. Now, when you hover over here, you can see that it highlights green, and if you let go while it's green, it attaches. Now, attachments have a few override behaviors. In this case, it can override the sound, so that it uses a different sound effect, and can affect the damage and such like that. The second one is actually a torch. Now, the torch can be used on its own, so I can hold this torch and I can click on the thumbstick, right on the thumbstick in this case, to toggle it on and off. But it's also an attachment, which means that just like before, it has a highlight shader right there. And when it goes green, I can attach it. Now when it's on, I can actually still toggle the light with the hand that's holding the gun, using the same thumbstick control. I can actually toggle the light just like I could before. So it works both independently and as an attachment, using this little override behavior. And last of the attachments, I have the scope. It also works independently. You can actually affect the zoom here just by holding it naturally, or we can attach it to the gun, and we can see that it also works like that. Okay, so that's all these ones, and you can attach them, of course, all of them. So obviously I can attach my toggle my flashlight and do the scope, because the scope is attached to thumbstick left, the torch is attached to thumbstick right, and obviously the silencer doesn't have any actual controls. It just overrides the sound. Okay, all these attachments actually can work with multiple weapons. So for instance, I can grab my rifle here, and I can take off the scope and grab my rifle, and you see that it's the same attachment, but it knows it can be compatible with multiple weapons. So in this case, I can attach it to both this rifle and this bolt action. It's the same one. So nice, easy customization. And obviously, I've not got any nice models here, but you can make them. You can make a load of different models, a load of different scopes, and have them compatible with all kinds of different weapons. You just need to set it up. So for this bolt action rifle, the special thing about it is that its slide has more than one point, whereas the other slides just go back and forth. This slide actually goes up and back, and you can do that, and it's also not set to be a spring, so when you let go of it, even partially through, it'll just stay where it is, and if it's not all the way along, then you won't be able to fire the gun, so you have to move it all the way back, and then you can fire. Let's see if we can hit a target a bit away. We can, with that target. Okay, this also has a magazine, and the top bullet's visible, just like it was before, and obviously this also has a second held position for making aiming a little easier. Now, another thing about this gun, and all the guns, is that you can actually hold the second held position on its own. So, for instance, this bolt action is actually on the right-hand side, so typically you'd want to use your trigger finger for controlling the bolt, and so you can hold it with your second held, and then let go of the trigger hand, and now you're actually holding it just by the barrel. Now you can grab the slide and pull it back with your second hand, so I could grab, fire. So actually that's a spent round, although it actually uses the same mesh in this case. So we want to pull that back, so we eject the spare, and we've loaded a brand new shot. So every time you shoot, you have to pull the slide all the way back, so we can fire again. And then we can let go of just the trigger hand, pull this back, expend the spent casing, loaded a new one, and we're ready to fire again. And see if we go for a little bit of a trickier shot. Let's go for the distant one, shall we? Oh, missed. Alright, I'm not the best. Let's try it again. There we go, nice. Okay, so that's the bolt action rifle. Okay, that's the magazine for the bolt action rifle and also a bullet. So here we have the shotgun. So shotgun uses a pump. It's the same as the bolt action in that every time you fire, you have to pull the pump. The pump acts also as a second held position, so you can hold the pump to aim as well as draw back. It's empty to start off with, so we've got some nice cylinder shells here that we can load in. And obviously most shotguns, I think, typically have a little flap on the underside here, and you can add your receiver collider to be there. In my case, since it's just this model, I've added the collider to be just like right around here. So when you put the gun next to the receiver, it just loads it, and you can move that collider to be wherever you want it to be. So if you put one just down here with a flap with your nice model, then it would work just the same. Once you've got a few bullets in, you can see that the top one's been loaded right away, and we can fire that, and we see that this is now a spent casing, and just like with the bolt action, you expend the spent casing, and if there's one available, then it will immediately be loaded. So the shotgun, another thing about it is that it's also using ray casting, but it's also using tracer rounds. That means that you can see the little ray cast lines, so it just means it's made a line renderer between where it shot and where it hit, and you can see that actually it fires a multiple shots in a spread. You can customize how that spread looks. You can see that it hits about there, and here, fire it again. It's a different arrangement, just uses some random variables to control the spread, and you can control the angle at which it spreads and the amount of shots per pellet, if you want to refer to it like that. And when you've expended all your bullets, then you're done with that gun. On the end here we have a grenade right here, and we got some shapes on this grenade that represent the different parts of it, because I don't have a model to include in this asset, but it's really easy to add a model, and there's a different tutorial video where I'll show you how to use your own model and either build it from scratch or copy one of these existing ones and use a different model with it. So for the grenade, we've got this circle here that represents the pin, and we've got this square, this cube, that represents the lever. So when the pin is attached, the grenade is completely dormant, won't go off, you can drop it, do whatever you want with it, it won't ever explode. When you take the pin away, now it's in an armed state, but it's not actually ticking, so this you can hold this forever. It's not gonna do anything because the lever is still attached. The timer begins when the lever is removed. Now I could throw the gun and the lever would immediately drop off, or I can press the action key to actually still hold on to the grenade while doing that, and then I can drop it and it'll explode. And I've basically cooked the grenade. And if I just reset the scene, and show you I can take the pin off and just throw the grenade. Then you see as soon as I let go of the grenade, the lever actually went off, and there it goes, exploding after its timer, which is the same amount of time. I just threw it straight away. Okay, so that pretty much explains everything. Oh, I also didn't mention the force pull I was just using. I've been using the whole video. All I'm doing is I've set the grip button to be a hover, so when I'm not holding it, it does nothing. But when I'm holding it down, you can see that it actually hovers over stuff from a distance. And then if I click the trigger while hovering over something, it'll just zip to my hand. And I can do that. Yeah, I can do that whenever I want. Okay, so that pretty much explains everything in this scene. Thanks for watching.